Yo, sorry I'm late. I know I usually put these up at 6 a.m., but by about 2 o'clock in the morning, last night, or I guess this morning, when I was working, I recognized that I had forgot what day it was, and then promptly figured that my countenance at that point of the night would not be worth documenting. It's Dev. Here we are for, what is this, the 16th update, 17th update? Where have we been? So it's a lot. The practicalities of me getting the framework done for these multiple projects immediately made a lot of sense on a financial level. Meaning that by getting the base or the basic tracks down for a lot of these records simultaneously means that I would save on certain flights, and if people were available, as it ended up that they were, it made it such that that I could get a lot of work done for the future, so that when I finally am able to focus on the specific parts of Axolotl and the Moth, those basic tracks and the work that goes into tracking them is done. So I took advantage of that, and I had Morgan come out to do the drums for Axolotl, which is turning out to be a very strange project that I love very much. But it's also the most abstract of them. So I had Morgan come out and we tracked, and then he's doing stuff at home. And then I'm able to stockpile that and then get any editing that needs to be done, any loops that I need to do, any additional musicians that are involved with that can kind of work on that on the side while I'm focusing on the other things. And then, as it turns out, the Power Nerd record, which is the least abstract of them all, it's more in line with what I had done in the past, like I had said, with kind of Epic Cloud Addicted thing, and even less abstract than those. I found out that Darby was going to be in America, and so as a British citizen, it made a lot of sense for me to take advantage of him already being in North America and then fly him out, and then we can get those drums done. Which meant that promptly after the Axolotl project drums were finished, I went into the writing and the arranging and finishing up of the Power Nerd stuff, so that I have a wealth of material that I can then present to him when he gets here, and then record more than I need, so that I can have enough for bonus tracks and what have you. And although this seems like there's a lot of work, it's always been that way. And it makes sense for me right now to do that, because the Moth, which I've put on hold until these sessions were finished, require me to really do that to the exclusion of everything else. A project like Power Nerd is great fun, and there's boundaries to it. Excuse me. Which, amidst the complexities of the Moth and the abstract nature of Axolotl, I find quite refreshing, actually, so that when I go to that, I can kind of focus on those boundaries, and it inspires a different type of creativity. And when I get to the Moth again, it's going to require everything from me, and Power Nerd is, I re-signed with Inside Out. And part of that was just contingent on getting this record ready in time. As you can probably sense, excuse me, I'm going to clear my throat, this is distracting. bit of a cold. Doesn't feel like it, but it is certainly a bit of phlegm. Take a deep breath down. Yeah. The practicalities of making music are oftentimes in direct opposition to the creative part of one's brain that goes into writing. Yet I do enjoy the logistics of it. I do enjoy setting these things up. And I think, if I'm being perfectly honest, a certain amount of my process requires adrenaline. Without that kind of pace that I consistently seem to set up for myself, I find I don't write in the same way. That's an interesting observation I'm just coming to terms with. A lot of time people in my life or people close to me say, well, why are you scheduling these things so close to each other? And a certain part of it is absolutely the practicalities of having people here when they're available. And then another part of it is getting all the boring work done so that when I am able to sit and be creative, I don't have to think about tracking drums, I don't have to think about editing drums, I don't have to think about tones, I don't have to think about all these things that come along with the grunt work of making records. And after 30 some odd records, I'm well versed in that part of the process. I know people who are just making their first record right now, and just the idea of renting a studio and having musicians come out and tracking the drums is a huge prospect. But after having done it so many times, I've got a bit of a procedure that I put into place when it comes to delivering tracks and getting the things that I need for my bed tracks, specifically drums. I don't love the process of tracking drums. So I tend to hire people who do. Because left to my own devices, the phase and the microscopic aspects of what makes a drum performance really work for me, I don't have the desire to be as fastidious with that process as I want the end result to include. So I do get a bunch of people involved with it, and it's a lot of work, but I've got a strategy for doing that, so I can really get the logistics of making a record dealt with quickly. That being said, I don't love that process, so I just kind of dig into it and I get it done. And by scheduling it in the ways that I do, I realize I'm sort of bouncing between topics here. I realize that the adrenaline of that, of knowing that it's like, okay, you've got to be done that in a week. Okay, this has to be done next week. Deadlines. Knowing that those deadlines exist inspire a type of creative energy in me that, in absence of, I tend to waffle, you know? If someone says to me, the drums don't have to be done for a year, I'll still wait till the last minute. And not because I am a procrastinator, because I'm truly not, but more so, there's a creative energy that comes with deadlines for me. There's a creative energy that comes with boundaries. There's a creative energy that comes with, we have to get this done because directly after is another thing. And I can understand from the outside how that can appear as being, that frantic pace can appear as being poor time management, for example. But it's by design. When I do that, as I have this week, I realize that's when the ideas come. Maybe there's a certain amount of for example, lyrics. The Power Nerd record is fun for me, fun to listen to, very simple. But by having those boundaries, what it leaves is room for the lyrical content to be really, really emotional. And the work that goes into mining the depths of what is required for me as a person to articulate those emotions in lyrics is something that I seem to not be able to reach unless I force myself to. Why would I force myself to? Because in absence of that, it's just simple music. There's no reason, there's no intrigue there for me. I don't have any desire to just write simple music about vacuous topics or nothing. So I really have to dig into it for the power nerd thing and really say what it is that I've been holding in and wanting to say. And it's like every fiber in my being resists that, you know, because it's too much, it's too intimate, or it's too intense. And I've spent a certain amount of time recently questioning why, if you feel like it's difficult, and if you feel like, you know, every fiber of your being resists it, why would you do it? Like, what would be your reason for mining those emotional depths of your being? Are you doing it because you want to be seen? Are you doing it because you want to be validated? Are you doing it because you think that there's a certain amount of your past that, in absence of that, it makes no sense? I mean, I guess on some level all of those things apply to lesser or greater degrees. But overwhelmingly, it just seems like that's what it needs. That's a simplistic way of stating that, but it's the process. Since we've been doing this video update, I recognize more and more every week that goes by how much of this is about intuition and about following the energy of your life and the things that come into your world. This is an esoteric term, but the signs, and I don't mean it in an esoteric way, but I mean literally, like an opportunity might come up and the skill set is about recognizing it. So many opportunities can come and go because you're not able to act on them, or you're not willing to act on them, or even more to the point, you don't recognize them as being things that could really be interesting. I was listening to an artist the other day, and I recognized the thing that I liked about her music. This is Juana Molina again. The thing that I like about it was not necessarily the tones, not necessarily the songs, not necessarily the lyrics, and it's not just her, it's any artist I recognize there. It's what makes her an artist in my mind, or what makes another artist in my mind an artist, is their specific decisions. Like, why did they choose to do that? That's what makes them the artist, in a way. There's an AI thing that was sent to me the other day where you just type in text-based prompts and it will write a song with certain voices in any style. I'm sure you've seen it. And then Mid-Journey for art and all these things. And there is such an uproar about artists and from artists about how all these things make musicians and artists obsolete. But I would argue that that's not the case. I would argue that the ease in which artificial intelligence creates music, art, etc., really underlines the importance of knowing who you are. Like I've been speaking about since the beginning. Because if the value of music is no longer based on your ability to provide technical excellence, if that is no longer a commodity that's of any value, or the ability to arrange a pop song, because those formulas are so drilled into society, if that can be replicated by an algorithm, what is left? And in my opinion, what is left is, well, who are you? Who are you? What can your experiences and your person and the things that you have been through and the insights that that has brought to you, how can you articulate that in a way that other people, when they hear it, can feel like, oh, that's saying something that I feel that I can't express, if they're not a musician, for example, or not an artist. And in order to do that, however you need to get there, while staying as balanced as you can be for the sake of the obligations in life that you've chosen to be there for, then that's what your process is. So when I was working on the Power Nerd stuff the other day, I was singing these lyrics, and it's not that I don't cry as a human being, because I do. But when I write this stuff, it's like the whole thing is, you cry while you're writing. And I guess that's why I procrastinate on it. In order for it to be what it wants to be, it's like I'm not forcing it to be emotional. The nature of that project is that's what it is. Your kid's leaving home, or your parents are older, or there's all these changes in your life. It's like, I'm a human being, like all of us, right? And it's just so rife with emotion that as a father or a provider or what have you, it's not practical to let those emotions interfere with the decisions that need to be made. It's not practical to be constantly exploded so that you can't be there for the obligations that you clearly have signed up for. So that when the music starts to come together, whether or not it's axolotl or moth or Power Nerd or any of these things, my intuitive sense is that my subconscious directs this creative outlet in a way that as you get closer and closer to its final form or even its inception, there's a real sense of, oh, that's what it needs to be. That's exactly what it needs to be. And Power Nerd, all of a sudden, I'm like, why is this so simple? Why is this so straight ahead? And as I get further into it, I'm like, well, it's straight ahead for a number of reasons. It provides a platform and a release that includes boundaries that, juxtaposed by the abstract nature of axolotl and the majesty and the overwhelmingly grand statement that is the moth, it provides balance. I can also understand that if you're not a musician or you're not an artist, you can see someone like myself doing these things and think, well, you're a masochist. Why would you do these things? Why would you do this to yourself? My answer to that is, in the past I've tried not to. In the past I tried to stop. In the past I tried to say, okay, I'm no longer a musician. Now I'm going to build furniture. Or I'm just not going to write. If it has this type of control over me, then I simply won't write. And it just, for me, not only did it not work, but it yielded really negative things in my life, to the point where the lesson that I feel I learned from that experience of trying to stop was, You are a musician. This is your life. This is your art. This is your dharma. So do it. Don't fight it. Just do it. The only thing that you need to proactively really not fight but be conscious of is your life includes a lot of things. And it all requires harmony and balance between it. Even when it's destructive music, even when it's chaotic statements, even when it's the moth. I feel like over the past couple of weeks I've made peace to a greater degree with the idea that, okay, so this is what this period is. It is intense. It is chaotic. Parts of it are very dark. Parts of it are very energetic. Parts of it are very beautiful. Parts of it are very calm. So when your intuition guides you to any one of these outlets that seem to have arisen as a practical receptacle for those particular parts of your current emotional state, and just be grateful for them and just do them. The difference now between where I'm at with this type of a process and where I was in the past with this sort of thing is I felt in the past that I was a slave to it. And although what I just described could be interpreted as a similar thing where you're a slave to your creative impulses, it feels different than that, in that when I get tired, I go to bed. You know? If while I'm working, it's too much, I just stop doing it. And so it takes longer. But I realized that although the adrenaline that comes with the scheduling of it is important to the creative process, sleep is now just as important. So getting sleep is essential to this process. And I do. If I'm tired at night, like I don't do the all-nighters anymore. Once in a while I do it, it's just like, I'm just done for 4 days after. And yes, I suffer from an insomnia from time to time, all the time. But facilitating sleep in a way that has as much importance or more adhered to it than any aspect of the creative world is an integral part of this particular part of my world. And relaxing too. From the outside, if I'm just doing an update once a week, I'm sure it appears like I'm constantly going, and I am. But it also includes a lot of time just sitting, or sleeping. My energies are much more efficiently distributed to the workload that my life currently includes if I've had sleep. If I haven't had sleep, it all goes to shit. Didn't used to be that way. I could survive on 4 hours of sleep and still continue. Now, if I get 3 or 4 hours of sleep, I might as well not work at all that next day, because it's whatever I create is not coming from a place of emotional strength and resilience. It's coming from a place of fatigue, and I always have to redo it. So on a practical level, it's important for me to recognize that certain things no longer work. Certain guitar sounds that I've relied on for so many years no longer work, So I've been working on Power Nerd. Some people didn't like that name in my professional world. Really didn't like that name, and other people did. But that's exactly what it's going to be. And I see it now as being like, I see the layout as being like misty mountains with trees and rain, and a really elegant power nerd underline with my name, black. And it shouldn't be humorous. It should be more of a serious presentation. Although the music, and I'm only a week and a half away from tracking the drums, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around what the nature of the record is, because I've got more than enough songs, but they're so different. Like some of them are really fast and like Motorhead, and some of them are more like, you know, Angel from Epicloud, and some of them are more like rock, like intense, right? It's like rock much more than metal, but with metal tones in a sense. But there are so many different styles within these songs that have been generated for Power Nerd that I think I'm missing 2 songs, and I think those 2 songs, I need to have a good intro to essentially act as a mission statement for what it is that Power Nerd is meant to represent, and what it's meant to represent for me during this period, how it provides equilibrium for the rest of it. And today I woke up thinking, okay, well, today I'm going to work on the first song, but I think that my time is actually best spent today working on the arrangement of 2 of the songs that are much more like, one of them is very, very much like Motorhead. I used to love Motorhead. And the other one is up tempo and fun in a way. And I need to, I think, as opposed to work on that first song today, I need to find an arrangement for those. The thing about Power Nerd that I really have been cognizant of is I don't want it to be challenging. You know, Power Nerd is going to come out before all of them, and I don't want it to be challenging to listen to. I was listening to a friend's album the other day. He was playing it for me, and he's been working on it for a long time, and it's really good, but it's complex. It's like every time it goes to a new part, I'm like, oh, I didn't expect that. And Axolotl has nothing I expect. Nothing. It's complete abstract. It's the whole thing is alien. And Moth is just so, it's like this biblical scale of you know, orchestral / emotional intensity in metal, and it also isn't what I expect. And so the way that Power Nerd provides balance for me right now is when I listen to it, when it comes to a part that, you know, maybe has a little skip on the beat or something clever here and there that for those other records that I'm doing is very appropriate. Now I'm just like, no, fuck that. No, I want this to be like, it goes to that. You know it's going to go to that, then go to that. And chorus, it gets to the chorus. Why? Well, because everything's too complicated. I don't want this to be complicated. I don't want it to be complicated. And when I listen back to it, when I get the arrangement right, I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. Because the emotional intensity that album seems to be demanding, every time it gets clever, I'm just like, oh, you're fucking it up. It doesn't need to do that. You just need to be direct with this. Be direct with that. And it's hard. It's like a science more than it is an artistic statement when you're writing for directness, because how you keep that flow moving, you know, the flow of the energy of the material, it's like feng shui in a sense. It's like, you know, you'll hit a roadblock and be like, oh, what's your point of having that there? And so many times with Power Nerd, I'm like, oh, you're trying to be clever. Whereas Axolotl, it's like anything goes. And with the Moth, it's like, oh, it is fundamentally like clever. So of course it does that. Of course it has that, and of course that lands on the 3 or whatever. But with Power Nerd, it just seems to get in the way. And so if I'm trying to be direct emotionally, the intensity of that is completely sidelined by these little bullshit creative decisions that are better served in the other material. We're almost finished the model for the Ruby Quaker. It's amazing. We started filming it 2 days ago. It's It's amazing. So any companies that are paying attention to this that I've been working with, and I've been going, Dev, you said 6 months ago that you're going to have that out. I know, but it wasn't. Sorry. What am I going to do, you know? It's not like I haven't been working on it, but I want it to be awesome. I don't want it to be, you're doing these things for money, you're doing these things just to sort of, you're just doing these things to appease this. And going back to AI, this is what I realized. It's like the time for just writing music is kind of over in a way. And I feel that all the work that I've put into trying to hone, sounds awful, but the brand that is me really is important now. Because if your brand is your own creative impulses, then knowing yourself and really getting to the root of what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it, it no longer it feels like narcissism to me. It feels like a practical move. So if Power Nerd needs to be hyper emotional on my side, and you're working through the intensity of trying to sing this stuff while you're just broken up, and then you have to go outside and you have to take care of the things in your life that are being asked for, and then then that's what it requires. And if the moth is heavy and fucking dark and crazy, and then that's what it requires. And if axolotl is like freedom and just hypnotic alien oddness that has no discernible structure, and it's just an outpouring of the emotional need to not be confined, then that's what that is. And if Ruby Quaker and that show and the spaceship is a way to document that process and bring it all together into a trajectory that includes not only that, but the guitars and all the stuff that I'm working on, then that's what that is. So do it to the best of your ability and don't compromise. And if what helps your creative process is to slam your schedule so that you can impose the adrenaline rush that sheepishly I admit has probably been a part of my process all along, then that's what it requires. So get some fucking sleep. Eat properly. Get your exercise, Forgive yourself if some days you're not on point. And if, you don't have anything. Forgive yourself if you sit at the computer one day and you think, God, the deadline's showing up, oh my God, this is going to be, and you got nothing. Then that's what it is, The whole process of writing records for all these years is really about learning. It's about a process of self-discovery so that you can grow. And there's certain phases that are going to be really pretty, and there's certain phases that are going to be really complicated, and there's going to be certain phases that require other things, and allow that. Don't judge it. And all the expectations that come into it from a business vantage point or from the expectation of an audience or whatever, it's like they're going to be best served by you getting your shit together and understanding what it is that you really need to do right now for yourself. It's not going to help it by trying to second guess what other people want. It's not going to help it by trying to appease what management or label or the businesses that help you want. It's not going to work. The best thing that's going to happen is just to do what you're doing. So do it. I'll see you next week. Hope your project's going well. Cheers.